Now, Ja issued a statement saying, "I know I've disappointed a lot of people who supported me. This is a journey, and I recognize there is more work to do. My words may not mean much right now, but I take full accountability for my actions. I'm committed to continuing to work on myself." Close quote. Once again, this to me is the most important conversation that we will have all day. This is the most important conversation that you at home will hear all day. So gather around, call in your loved ones from the kitchen or wherever, and let's dial in. There are a few conversations in my mind that sports get to intersect with life. There are a few conversations that, to some degree, we should all truly, truly care about because it has to do with the greater good of humanity, not the greater good of your favorite sports team, your favorite quarterback, your favorite two-guard, but the greater good in society. And this, to me, is one of those very important and meaningful conversations. So, Joy, much has been said about Ja Morant. There have been several reactions about Ja Morant. Some have been over the top, some have been underwhelming. But what do you say in regards to a suspension? Should Ja Morant be suspended?
Why? What are suspensions for? Suspensions are punishments. What did he do to warrant being punished? Did he do something illegal? Well, unless that gun is illegal, which we're assuming it's not. If it was illegal, then I'll take back what I said. But I'm assuming that that gun is legally owned because it's the United States of America and you can buy a gun pretty much anywhere. So he didn't do anything illegal when having a gun. I'm assuming he can ride around with that gun. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't threaten anyone. He didn't point it at anyone. So from a perspective of the league, what is he doing that would warrant a 40, 50 game, year-long suspension? Well, he probably lied to the commissioner because he spoke to the commissioner, and I'm sure he assured the commissioner that he wasn't going to continue to do this. And what is he being asked to do? He's really not being asked not to own guns, because you can't ask people not to own guns. Plenty of people own guns. He's not being asked not to go to strip clubs. He's not being asked not to party. He's not being asked to not listen to a certain type of music. All they're asking him to do is not flash a gun on Instagram Live.
Right.
Which feels like not a big ask. I've been asked to do things in my career I would consider much more dramatic than not flashing a gun on Instagram Live. It seems pretty simple. Don't do that. So I said this before, but I'm at the point where this is a grown man. He's making his own choices. Obviously, this is on a path that we can all see as a trajectory towards tragedy, and nobody wants that. But at certain points in life, I have to assume that you are a grown man. He's a grown man. He has a child. Is he a young grown man? Yes. But at what point are you responsible for your own actions? And at what point is it the organization's responsibility? At what point is there corporate responsibility for the sponsors? What is the actual punishment for? Right. Because the NBA is not saying we're anti-gun, right? I mean, our country is certainly not anti-gun.
Right.
More than half the country is very happy to fight every kind of gun legislation law there is. We worship guns. We fetishize them in our music. Our politicians post Christmas cards with their families all holding guns big as me. They run the country. Our most powerful people love guns more than they love the life of our children who are in school learning their ABCs and getting slaughtered. So it's just very conflicting for me to define what it is that he's doing. I don't agree with it, by the way. I don't think he should be doing this. But from the perspective of the league, what is the message that you're sending? Don't flash a gun on IG Live, because it's certainly not don't own guns.
Very well said. Very well said. Slick, should Ja Morant be suspended?
Yes, because to me, there's a difference between doing something illegal and doing something wrong. And if you meet with the commissioner and the commissioner says something as simple as don't flash a gun on IG, you're right. That's not a big ask. And I have to believe, based on what Adam Silver said and what Ja Morant said afterward, that he agreed to that. And then he went and did it anyway. So to me, look, I will say from the very beginning, this subject hurts my heart. Because I've been around Ja Morant enough, and I know enough about his story, to see someone sabotaging themselves is very painful for me to see. And it's not, I put the gun aspect of it to me is a symptom of a larger problem, which is somebody who clearly or apparently to me cannot control their own behavior for whatever underlying issue or reason that may be. And that's why the suspension for me is only useful if it allows him to get two messages. One, you're not guaranteed to be able to play in the NBA. It is a privilege that you get to do that. And two, deal with whatever issue is the underlying cause for you not to hold your word, whatever that may be. And that's why I would give him that time. I don't, just taking away the money or sitting him aside, like, it's not that. It's like, what's missing here? How do you not get that this is not acceptable if you want to play in the NBA?
And real quick, the time is what, a year, you said? You didn't
What's
say,
that?
Oh, you didn't say time?
I'm not saying a specific time, but
I'm sorry.
I mean, but if it was a year,
you'd be cool with that.
And if you told me, take a year, and Ja Morant will come back and be able to be a mature person who can make good on everything else that he has, I'd say that year is worth it, and I would hope that Ja Morant would look at it and say it's worth it too.
Well, I have a problem with that. You know, I hear a lot of people saying that he should be suspended for a year. I mean, you say you'll be okay if he got suspended for a year. There's some players in the NBA that got suspended for years, right? Latrell Sprewell on national television, he choked his coach out, suspended for a year. I think that is probably, you said it's probably cool, that's probably right, right? Yeah. Guy like Ron Artest, they had a big fight in the Palace, suspended for a year. Yeah. So when I look at Ja Morant, a 23-year-old kid, he met with the commissioner. We talked about it should be simple. Don't flash your guns on social media. It should be simple. But at 23, he got it wrong. So the first thing we want to do is cancel him, give him a year of suspension?
It wasn't the first time.
Whatever it may be. We got to be better with trying to help our young players out. I think he definitely should get some type of punishment. I think, you know, detrimental to the league, to this team. You know, we sign contracts with NFL or NBA, whatever it is, and you can't do certain things under the policies.
Yes, sir.
Right? So he should get some type of consequence for that. But we got to get to a point where, like Joey talked about, he's not breaking no laws. It's like he's not breaking the laws. Everyone wants to cancel this dude at 23 years old.
It's not canceled.
It is canceled. You telling
not at all.
You telling a young man at 23.
Yeah.
I have kids. You have kids. I'm sure you tell your kids to do something, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. Tell them again they didn't do it. And eventually, that's when the parenting comes.
No, but at some point you got to pull the card.
Let me get in here for a second because just I'm curious with questions. Joy has said we have to, and I will agree with, like, Ja is 23. Shady, there is a hard juxtaposition between referring to somebody as a 23-year-old kid. Those two things, to some degree, are kind of oxymoronic, like saying cold as hell. Yeah. If you're 23, are you a kid? If you're a kid, are you 23? You have kids. The kids you're referring to, I believe, are 12 and under. I don't know that they are 23 years of age. Don't you think he is at an age in life?
So let me say this, then. Immature?
Yes. Yes, sir.
I'm sure we all... You don't have kids, right? You don't have kids. Sir. Okay. So we do. But y'all have cousins and friends and brothers that are 30 years old, 27, 26, 23, 24, and they don't have things figured out. The difference is that he's famous. So automatically we want to say, oh, give him the biggest punishment. No. We need to help Ja Morant out. He needs help. I ran to his father. Sure. When the Lakers lost or Lakers beat Memphis, I ran to his dad and I said, listen, I want to tell you this. I don't care what nobody's talking about. You're a great dad. I see you did a lot of things for your son. But at some point, it's your son that has to make the decision to do better. And he may be trying. He failed. Obviously told he had to meet with the commissioner, and that failed. We got to keep going. One thing you talked about, all these freaking mass murders we have in schools, they don't say nothing about it. How can we make it better? They kind of like put it under the rug. So it's funny when soon as an athlete, especially a young athlete, it's the end of the world. We got to do better at that, man.
Here's my thought. I haven't interjected with my opinion yet. My thought is this, is you have to punish him. I don't know if you need to suspend Ja Morant, but you got to punish him. The point of punishment is to change future behavior. So you have to punish Ja Morant in a manner that will change his future behavior. 8 games was not enough. But what I can't tolerate, what I won't tolerate, what you should not allow at home is for us to turn a blind eye to bad behavior that we know will end in destruction. Then 2, 3 months or 2, 3 years down the line, we're all saying, why didn't anybody do anything? Why didn't anybody speak up? Why didn't anybody try to change Ja's future behavior when we all saw it happening? So Ja should be punished in a manner that will at least change the future course of action.
Right, but punishment is also indicative of what you did, first of all, and whatever style of punishment it is has to take something away that would force you to change your behavior.
Correct.
Well, he's already been suspended, and it didn't change his behavior. So there's consequences to actions. Like, I firmly believe that. If you do something, there's a consequence. Sometimes there can be good consequences. You work out, you lose weight, you get healthy. That's a good consequence. But every decision that you make throughout your day and throughout your life and habitually make has consequences. My issue with the Ja Morant conversation is, one, I do not like treating people who are adults like they are babies. We are not responsible for Ja Morant's actions. Ja Morant has to make his own choices. And if we feel he's spiraling, that is a whole other conversation that makes me very uncomfortable, because we don't hold everybody to the same standard when it comes to guns. So I don't want to hear about it when it comes to music, and we don't hold them to standard to that. Our politicians, we don't hold them to the standard of that. We don't hold anybody in this country to any kind of standard when it comes to guns. It's a free-for-all. So if we're going to be this mad about it, be this mad about it all the time. I don't like this halfway stuff. It really bothers me. If Ja needs help, get him help.
But
and I can't do that.
But
does he need help? Does a politician who's sending out Christmas cards with his family all holding big guns this big need help? I think we as a society need help.
Come on now.
But that's a bigger conversation. When it comes to, I guess what it comes down to for me with Ja Morant is, these are Ja's choices. He knows the consequences of it. He's already been met with them. He's already been dragged on the internet. He's already talked to the commissioner. How?
Okay, here's why I don't think he knows the consequence. Because thus far, the only consequence has been an 8-game suspension. So,
relatively light.
Very light.
Okay.
So the consequence that Ja knows, to Joyce's point, if Ja knows the consequence, 2-5, the consequence is 8 games. But there is a higher consequence. If you were to jaywalk across the street, somebody might honk at you. That is a consequence. But you could jaywalk across the street and you could get a ticket. That's another consequence. Or you could get hit. That is another consequence. So the consequence that I personally know thus far as someone who has jaywalked before is being honked at. But there are greater consequences that would probably keep me from jaywalking in the future. So his consequence is only 8 games. That's the one that he knows.
I mean, but we have whole prisons, and people still commit crime. No one is unaware that if you commit a crime, there's a chance you could go to prison. But yet the prisons are full.
Okay, not wrong.
There's other reasons for that as well. But, like, you see my point. There are things we can make decisions knowing that there are dire consequences to it and still choose to do it. So do we all need to have our jobs taken away? Do we all need the stability in our lives taken away? To me, I think this is a internal Ja Morant conversation that he has with his family, that he has with his organization, and the stipulation is very clear. And to me, when someone habitually does something, because this is like the 6th incident of this isn't the first, this isn't the second, it's like 6, and it's all kinds of layers and violence, make it clear to them, there is no more chances. This is it. So, this isn't about suspension, or you can lose this many games, or this. Like, it's the end of the road for you if you continue this behavior. Because to me, when people habitually do things, that's the only thing they understand.
Okay, but I don't want to throw Ja Morant away by saying, all right, no suspension, no penalty. Next time you do this, you're out of the league and you're never coming back. Because I don't know that necessarily solves the underlying problem. 8-game suspension to me wasn't enough. Clearly, it wasn't enough to send the message. And I'm just thinking about the Malice in the Palace, Steven Jackson and Ron Artest. Hefty suspensions. Gilbert Arenas for a gun issue. Hefty suspension. Latrell Sprewell, 68 games. Did any of them ever do that again? Did Steven Jackson or Ron Artest ever engage fans again? Were they ever in any kind of incident like that? Gilbert Arenas, was he in any kind of incident like that? So to me, the punishment wasn't nearly enough to get the message to Ja. And again, the issue is it wasn't addressed the first time or the second time. This was a half a dozen incidents in when he finally gets, what, an 8-game suspension?
I'm not saying they should throw him away, but I'm saying, like, whatever the conversations are being had, it's not being articulated properly. And taking a year away of his career, is that going to keep him from putting guns on IG Live? Maybe.
See, Even what you're saying, like them other situations, those are violent acts, right?
Correct.
When I look at Ja Morant, I see an immature young kid with so much success and money and fame, right? That's what I see in him. Like, I've been there, right? Because I can't even be that type of person where I've never been there. I've been there where I've been in the car, maybe not showing my gun off, but the certain music is on. Me and my boy, we turned up, we 23, we done made it. You feel a certain way. Now, I can see if he's out there, you know, threatening people, putting guns on them, or doing something to them, or actually physically harming them. That's something. That's
but Shady, would you have done the same thing if the commissioner had come to you
at 22 years old? I don't know. At 22 years old, I don't know. I've done things. I have great parents. My mom and dad, they still married. Great. My dad been great in my life. But I've done things that I wasn't raised to do. Right? And you learn from it. Once, twice, 3 times until I learn it.
Same.
But at 22 years old, I can't tell you that. I was in the NFL at 20 years old, Slick. Right?
Yeah.
That's my first job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like there was things I look at Ja Morant, I can see myself in him. Now, I probably won't be showing a gun off because that wasn't like my thing. But I did have a gun. I didn't need no gun. But soon after the NFL, I got a gun. Taking it everywhere. And I didn't need to. I'm just talking about as a young kid, I can relate to that. Where you in a car with your boys, y'all turning up this and that, the third. NBA Youngboy is the rapper that he loves. NBA, all he talks about is killing and this, that, and the third. And in our culture, to be honest, we like music like that. I love Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, DMX, 50 Cent.
So you would have been willing to risk your job in order to continue to do this?
People do it all the time, though.
Hold on. It sounds dumb, right? But when you're 23, you're not thinking that. You're not thinking, yo, I'm going to be done. I'm never going to play basketball again. You're not thinking that. We are. As adults, we thinking that. But at 22 years old, I wasn't thinking like that.
Let me ask you a question then, Shady. Because I do believe of anybody on the desk, you were the youngest and the wealthiest of anybody in television that y'all have seen. You were the youngest and the wealthiest. What punishment would work in your professional opinion? Professional being you were young with money. What punishment would work as a behavior correction, a behavior modification?
The first thing I look at is he hasn't harmed anybody, right? He hasn't broken any laws. That's the first thing. So when we talk about a year, I'm taking that off. That's out. That's out. No year talk. Yep. He should definitely get suspended because of the NBA policies. They have the same thing we have in NFL, where detrimental to the team or to the league.
Conduct detrimental.
Yep. And it's the face, the shield. The shield. They want to protect that. So I get that. He should be a role model. I understand that. Role models shouldn't be around there, showing guns. I get that. So there should be some punishment.
But what would work? That's what I'm trying to ask you. Not if there should be. What would work in your mind?
None of us have that answer. We don't have that answer. One answer we do need to come up with is, hey, how can we help this 23-year-old kid that's a face of our NBA? That's the main answer. Fair. I don't know if it's a year or not, but come on, we gotta be better. We can't just throw him away because he's making immature decisions.
Agreed. Thank you all for hanging with this conversation. Obviously, a difficult conversation we all navigated with you all at home.
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.